I found inspiration from other composers who were doing, who were actually being true about the music they were writing and who they were.
Yeah.
So, that's my hope for
Yeah.
other composers, that they would, push the envelope and just be themselves.
And 200 years from now, people can look back at your music and totally misinterpret your life and your intentions and analyze it and get it all wrong.
That's Friday. That is
Right?
Friday.
So you have a very exciting premiere coming up with the LA Phil and Dudamel. And I saw the title of your piece, Good News Mass. And, so I love it already, even though I haven't heard it. And I know that your music is, in general, celebratory. But this idea of music being good news, I've been thinking about that and how that really, I think, travels generations and, all kinds of cultural moments as music being like the beautiful thing, the joyful thing that can inject itself no matter what's going on in the world.
Yeah, well, that's the thing I have always thought about, what is my music trying to say? And what am I trying to say through the music? And so when I received the commission or the call from the LA Philharmonic, it's mind-blowing, right? And they were just like, just what do you want to write? Carte blanche. Any instrumentation, any genre, whoever you want to work with. And, I freaked out for a little while. I was like, what? This is crazy. It was during the pandemic, too. So it gave me a little bit of good news during that time.
Yeah.
But I thought about the world as it was. I thought about where I was as a composer, my career, my artistic journey, and what got me to the place where I was then at that point. And a large part of that was my background growing up in church and realizing how much impact that had on my musical DNA. And I said, I got to go back to my roots, and gospel music has always been the center of my journey. And thought about the word gospel, what that actually means. It means good news, and so, my dad's a preacher. And so he spread the gospel. He spread the good news every single Sunday.
Yeah.
And so that's what I wanted to do with this particular piece, is so to go back to my roots, not as a preacher, even though my dad wants me to be a preacher today. But, I told him I want to use music as a pulpit.
Yes.
And so this is what I'm intending to do in this particular piece. Not being unapologetic about, my faith and my belief in God and how it has helped me and how it can help others.
That introduction to music as a very small child, especially that tradition of music, I really feel like it must have a very unique role in determining your path because, right, it's music as joy on a regular basis and music as a connector of community. I mean, that's different than youth orchestra, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it isn't, but it shows you in real time how music has this superpower in the world.
Yeah, it's service.
Yes.
And that's what I got from that. I didn't realize it then, but we were in church all the time, Laura. I mean, it was every day doing something, choir rehearsal, or it was Bible study, or, I was cleaning up the church.
Yeah.
And so that experiencing that at a very young age and knowing how to serve people without getting anything out of it other than seeing the joy on their faces, that has stayed with me. And so I use that, whenever I write a piece of music, I love writing music. I would do it for free. And for a long time I did.
Yeah.
But that came from my idea of service from church. Every single week doing something, for our community and, in service to God, of course. But that was a part of my life. Yeah.
That thing about music as service, it's funny, I was just talking this week with some young musicians who are starting their careers. And we were talking about the part of this job that can look like anxiety. It can look like, competition. It can look like perfectionism. And I brought up this idea of service. If you are always making your music in service, then it's not about you anymore. It's about the gift you can give and the joy you can bring.
Right.
I mean, that's sort of at the heart of the music that you write. It's really clear.
Yeah, and I saw my father do that every single week. He would prepare. I would see him on Saturday nights, sometimes late. Like I'd wake up going to use the restroom, he'd get up 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. studying, to prepare for the sermon, which would happen on Sunday. And, people will come every single week for something, some type of peace, some type of struggle. I mean, to kind of get past the struggle of the week, and it's like this one place where you could feel safe. With community.
Yeah.
And, I go back to my father's church a lot now, and it's like, oh, Carlos. They call me Little Carlos. I'm not little no more, But, it's just like, one place where you just embrace it. It feels genuine,
Yes. Yeah. Your family goes back how many generations in the church?
3, as far as I know. 100 years.
Yeah.
My great-grandfather started this church in 1927.
Wow.
In Washington, D.C. The church is still there.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. It's still there.
So you've got all these ancestors talking to you in your music.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are they telling you?
Well, it's funny. I have in my studio at home, I have on one side all of my ancestors who've gone on on my dad's side and my mother's side. Mm-hmm. And so going back as far as I can, so I have pictures of them.
Yeah.
And hanging on my wall. And it's great to have that connection and that lineage. Mm-hmm. And I'm so grateful for it because, not everyone can connect in that way to service. And I look at their pictures and I'm like, wow, they're in suits and they're regal, but I have this sense of like the world is not right, but I am representing in the best way that I can. That's what I get out of these pictures, when I see them.
Yeah.
And I get strength, So whenever I'm having a hard day, I kind of look at the pictures and it gives me the courage and the strength to kind of go on. Mm-hmm. And because if they were definitely dealing with some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Black people in the 30s and the 40s.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of strength. And, so I do believe that they are with me, So whenever I go to a performance, or a premiere where I'm not feeling the most confident, I say, "Come on with me." Mm-hmm. I take them with me, and they're embedded in the music, because they're there when I write the music, and they're there at the premiere, when I have to talk, and so I definitely have to feel like I have to pay respect and bring them with me wherever I go.
Yeah, you're lucky to have that, so intimately in your family. I feel like I and many of us are trying to find that connection with, whoever our ancestors are, whether they're musical ancestors or biological ancestors, but just to understand these cycles of history and how music, art, self-expression has really played into the journey throughout all these, previous times of a lot of trouble. Well, the way things come and go. Mm-hmm. It's really, for me, essential right now to feel that connection. It's funny because as musicians, we're always connected to the past, right? I mean, we grew up playing music that's hundreds of years old, but to drill down and try to understand what that means and how it does support you and how it tethers you, it's very powerful. Mm-hmm.
No, but seeing that, the past and how I can move forward.
Yes, well, exactly.
And not recreating the wheel. Mm-hmm. That's another thing. So lineage and family lineage is important, but also like the artistic lineage, feeling like I am a part of a larger movement, if you will, a larger family, which includes people like Florence Price and Margaret Bonds and Albert Singleton, and so many other composers who are living and have passed on, and knowing their work, what they've done, and how I can push the envelope just a little further.
Yeah.
And just through my work alone. Mm-hmm. I think that gives me some courage too.
It's funny, when you were talking about the Mass earlier, I was thinking about William Grant Still and the Sunday Symphony and how he's capturing that rhythm of the week. You know, you work and you struggle, and then comes Sunday.
That's it.
Duke Ellington, too, comes Sunday.
Yeah, you said it.
That's right, yeah.
Duke Ellington, Mary Lou Williams.
Yes, Mary Lou Williams. Also, I've been thinking about Bernstein, and I feel like anyone who's going to take on a big American Mass is walking with Bernstein. And, that's a piece he wrote during times of wild conflict and division and revolution, 1971, right? Yeah. And a piece that got him in a lot of trouble, right? Because it was an overt statement against the Vietnam War. And there are people who didn't like hearing about that. Well, I guess what I want to say is, this thing of having your music, your work be present in a way that is timely and that is also timeless. And I know that, you have navigated these last few years when I feel like sometimes art has been pushed into a place of social commentary. And you don't do that. I think your work is very timeless. And maybe that has something to do with this commitment of yours to lineage. And
Well, I mean, I do try to reflect, the times in which we live. And it's hard not to in some way, but I think history repeats itself, right?
Yes.
And I think Bernstein's Mass is it's something that it's relevant today.
Yes.
We're dealing with some of the same issues, but some of the works that have been performed before that are still relevant, which is why I think we're still, performing Beethoven and Mozart. And I think when you perform a piece of work by a composer on a deeper level, you're kind of tapping into their struggles, their convictions, their view on the world. And I think whether they are overt about it or not, it always seeps into the music. You can't get away from it. I don't think you can separate the music from the person.
You are a very busy composer. So 4 years you had for this, during which time you've done a million other projects. And I feel like I'm not great at scaffolding my things, so one thing has to wait till it's, how do you do that, and how do you divide up your time and your energy and but more just your inspiration, your mind for different projects?
Yeah, it has to thaw. It has to kind of simmer for a while and cook. And and so I'm glad I had this much time to think about the piece, because when I have a lot of time, it allows me to kind of think about it for a while, like really, really dive deep, and then let it simmer.
Yeah.
And I'll go back and later after I work on another piece, or I'll travel, or I'll, just do something not related to that.
Yeah.
And then somewhere in that process, I'll get another idea and go back to the work, and so I'm always writing the piece, whether I'm like actually notating, it's always kind of happening in my mind, either on a walk or a conversation I may have with someone. So, oh, wait a minute, I can implement that in that piece.
Yeah,
so being open
nice
to the world is always something that I'm always trying to do as a composer, as an artist.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing, but it's hard to kind of cut off, because it's like being open. It's like you're open to the ideas, which means that you're never kind of off.
I know that you, like me, are working on a big project for the 250th anniversary of the founding of this country. And I think too, that I've been moving around and talking to folks about these ideas of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And it's funny because when I put those ideas forward in the context of music, they are everywhere. I mean, there is no piece of music that does not express one or all of those concepts, right? But I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how they come to you and how you express them in your work.
I'm full of life, and then I will go to the music, which is the outlet for me. So it's having the ideas, the living, and then I go to the piano and I improvise. And I don't think about anything. I just this is what I'm feeling. This is all the experiences that I had. This is kind of in the music, in the improvisation. And that for me has been the most enlightening form of creativity. And that is
freedom.
Freedom, yes. Freedom,
Right?
that's right. Freedom.
I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, living.
Right?
Living my
Yeah.
life as like it's in the world. And that's the most important thing. You know, art reflects life.
Yes. Yeah. And also the last part of it, this pursuit of happiness, I think as musicians, the happiness is in the pursuit of the happiness, right? It's in doing the work. It's in the creative process. It's really not so much, I mean, sure, it's really fun to be at opening night, of the premiere of your new piece. Mm-hmm. But wasn't the greatest joy in the making of it?
Yeah, it's the journey.
Yeah.
And it's the journey.